Hello everyone, welcome to this ProcureCon Travel session. My name is Clodagh Flanagan. I work in the global sales team at FCM Travel Solutions, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Ben Park, Senior Director of Procurement and Travel at Parexel, and Mike Cox, Senior Consultant at FCM Consulting. Our topic today is defining procurement success as complexity grows. Obviously, we are coming out of a very interesting time in the travel industry, and procurement has taken a new shape and size. We're really wanting to shine a light today in our conversation on the emerging trends that we are seeing in travel procurement. Priorities are shifting, and as they shift, we have to identify new KPIs or redefine what success means in a program. And with that comes obviously measurement. Do the historic metrics and tried and tested formulas still work in today's environment? And that's really what we're going to explore today. So I guess it's probably a good idea to start at the beginning. It's not exactly out with the old and in with the new. It's more a case of addressing what worked before and how do we adapt to today's environment. So Mike, could I maybe start with you first? Just based on your conversations and consultation that you're doing with clients, talk us through a couple of the points that we see here as the key areas that you believe are good areas to focus on.
Sure. Thanks, Gordon. What we're dealing with a lot of our clients, obviously, we've just done the 2021 business plans, what we're going to do for the coming year. And a lot of that has to do with measurements. How are we going to improve over last year? Well, last year, as we all know, was a bit of a mess. So rather than the traditional metrics that we've used year over year to see how we are improving, as a global statement, year over year doesn't work anymore, right? So your volumes were 10% of what they were the previous year. The average ticket price, the average daily rate, the average rental rate, all of those numbers were artificially deflated, or in some cases inflated, but they don't necessarily work. There's been a lot of changes in the industry in terms of waiving of change fees now for the airlines. There's a ton of unused tickets we have. So there are a lot of things we need to plan for going forward. And doing the business plans, the biggest part of the business plan, obviously, is how do you measure it, right? How do you track if your business plan was a success, if you actually made a positive change for the program? So we came a lot from, we've done a lot of transitioning from dollar-based targets, right? I'm going to save this amount of money. Last year, I saved this amount. This year, I'm going to save this amount plus 5%, to percentage-based targets. Whether that's by commodity or whether that's the overall program, what are we going to save? Because we are going to spend more money in 2021 than we did in 2020. So we need to take a look at and see how we're going to measure those things. We used to do a lot, focus a lot with most of my clients on business unit spend. We're focusing so much more heavily now on spend by trip purpose. Why is this trip taking place? Is it to see a client, to see a supplier, for internal meetings or trainings, ministry event or conference, whatever it happens to be? We make all these purposes and we want to track because we want to focus on value creating travel, or what we call purposeful travel. Ben, what do you think about the next two here, right? We've had a lot of conversations about these.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. And you're spot on, by the way, with the other two. I really believe the purposeful travel will be one of the key metrics going forward. One traditional metrics was the average rate, mostly for air and hotel used and for rental cars. And I think next year this average rate might go up and down, but it's not an indicator of doing a good or not a good job, because there are so many variances of demand and supply being fully disrupted in the business. That's why it's more important to look at actual benchmark rates. So what are the variances, what you can pull from resources on current benchmarks from this year and how you trend against them. But average rates year over year really won't show any good picture in my view. And lastly, the classic one, advanced booking, the 14 days, yay, everybody dreams of this. And by the nature of the new reality is people will plan a lot earlier or later in the day and book earlier to the actual travel date. And this is not because they're not good planners. It's the nature of you don't know if restrictions are changing or something. So that's why the advanced booking is year over year is as well not the best indicator going forward, I believe. And that's why most colleagues I'm talking to are implementing a kind of a pre-approval at the moment and reviewing what pre-approvals are going through the system, how many, which categories. This shows you how busy is the machine and shows you how much manual interactions are necessary. Yeah, this will be my points, and feel free to add.
Yeah, I'm seeing on that the pre-approved by category. It goes along with trip purpose in many respects. So there are a lot more hurdles to get approvals for internal meetings or training or just getting together, which all have value, but the clients I'm working with are putting in much higher hurdles than sales, than client-facing travel from there. So they're adding friction to the system to make sure that to minimize that type of travel. I think the year-over-year piece actually on the market rates also, what we're finding is in terms of measurement, and this is important when you're a procurement professional and you're having conversations around how successful is your program for the year. Let's just say in 2019, you had a great rate at a specific hotel. The public rate was 200, you had 160, great. 2020, the bottom falls out of the market, the public rate is 130. So your 160 looks bad compared to the 130, and so your people end up paying 130. Now it's coming back. You've got twice the amount of room volume you had in 2020, projected for 2021, but the rates are back up towards 160. And it doesn't mean that you've done a bad job and you've actually delivered, you're prepared to deliver more volume, but the market is completely out of your control. So in the past, small fluctuations in the marketplace didn't have small changes in volumes, didn't have a huge change in the base rates. But now, because travel is so depressed, any change has an exaggerated effect on the base rate. So you're doing a good job, you're delivering more room nights, but your rate is still going to go up year over year. So that's why you need to measure the market, because that market now is 180 and you're getting 150, let's just say.
So there's definite shift from previously quantitative metrics moving more into the sort of qualitative metrics. Just a few other ones here: preferred vendor usage, traveler satisfaction, and policy compliance. Do you have any comments there? Maybe Ben, if you'd like to take this one.
Yeah, actually, I'll start with the first one. It's dear to my heart, because in procurement, we're driven by pushing a lot of volume to our preferred vendors, the classic 80-20 rule. And we're looking at reducing the number of suppliers, consolidating, moving more to them to get leverage, to lower the rates. We all know this game. But I believe in the next 6, 12, 18 months, it's not about only pushing the volume to the preferred suppliers and how much is going there, because you don't know, are they still operating in the market? How often? Have your travel patterns changed because people are now traveling different destinations and all this? So that's why I believe, first of all, preferred vendor usage is, again, not a good indicator if you're doing a good job or not in the next couple of 1.5 years. And therefore, one of the recommendations I have is looking at safety protocols with your vendors and focusing more on what are they doing to provide travelers with confidence and that they travel safely. And I see all suppliers have stepped up a lot and they all do a great job, but there are still differences. And so I would recommend instead like measuring the suppliers according to their safety protocol and looking at are your volumes going to these suppliers, which ensure your travelers have the best possible safety.
Yeah, I think a great example of that, Ben, is let's say one of your top city pairs or one of your top destinations was your headquarters city, right? Because that's where you manage training, let's say, as a company. Now, in 2021, you're still going to hold back on the training. Again, we're going back to the purpose for travel, but you're holding back on that. So that means your city pairs will shift relatively dramatically. So your preferred vendor contracts may not fit your new models of travel as well. So your mix may have changed enough with your airlines and with your hotels, frankly, that you need to, your old preferreds aren't the best fit for you anymore. So you need to sort of do a best fit analysis and overlay the safety protocols on that in order to find the right mix for your company.
Yeah. And going to the next one, the traditional metrics was traveler satisfaction. So how happy are travelers with a travel agency, with the online booking tool, with the preferred suppliers? And basically everybody came out with a great score there at the end. And I believe the best metrics for the next time would be actually asking about the traveler confidence. So how confident are they in traveling? How's the company doing on adjusting the policy, adjusting the suppliers used, providing them with additional PPE material? And I think this metrics is really one of the key metrics, the traveler confidence going forward. And I just encourage everybody who haven't done this yet, start a survey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with that as well. And I think also, how comfortable are people that you're going to visit are to have you come visit, right? So it's one thing that I'm comfortable to go travel, but the person I would go see isn't necessarily comfortable with me. So we need to figure out a better way of gauging that as well. From that piece, we talked about briefly, you and I offline, about the comfort for going back to the office, right? So companies having people come back to the offices is sort of in line with also what you're saying here is the traveler safety confidence of being on the road, right? So they sort of match up a little bit, correct?
Absolutely. And also what I'm always saying, if people are asking like, when is travel returning? I'm saying there is such a strong correlation to when are people returning to the office. And not all of them, but when they are be able to go back to the office. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so these two are highly connected.
And then the last one, the policy compliance savings, translating, which is basically like who's following the policy, how many people are booking through the preferred channels, measuring all this. What percentage of your expense is going through the TMC, is going on the corporate card, all of those pieces. And that, while that's still an important focus, really the more important focus is the traveler, the policy compliance from a travel risk perspective. So what percentage of your people are on the road? What's the risk level of the destinations that they're going to, and I guess coming from as well. How many people are approved for travel to go with that, and actively keeping track of these scores rather than week to week, we don't know how the decision's being made, or are more people traveling or fewer people traveling as a relation to the number of people who wanted to travel, right? So is that what you're seeing also, Ben, from that perspective? Like that's what we're talking about here, right? Is it safe to travel, and what is as a company, what is our responsibility for tracking all of that?
Yeah, absolutely. And also what this new tool is showing, it moves from a compliance view on savings, so in dollars, to a compliance view of risk. And that's the most important. So in the past, if people booked outside the system, we reported like a lost saving. But now it's basically, we don't know where they are. We don't know if they need help, if they are traveling to an area where there's new restrictions. So now booking out of channel is a risk to the company. And I think that's why it should be reported if it exists in your corporation.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. To sort of summarize, I guess, some of the findings, that sort of falls into a couple of areas. So obviously supplier risk, traveler risk, and then measuring success. And we're at a period where you're trying to assess all of this and adapt when it's a moving target. We're still in the eye of the storm in many senses. Any last comments or points of advice in terms of addressing these key areas and the trends that we're seeing here?
I'll go. So from a supplier risk perspective, you have your risk from a safety perspective. You have a risk of vendors going out of business, whether it's airlines ceasing to operate or hotels changing brands, changing ownership, car rental. There's some instability in that market, so you really need to take a look and say, make sure you're not putting all your eggs in one basket, right? You definitely need to, rather than compress the number of suppliers you're using, you need to open up, and you need to be comfortable with that.
Yeah.
In terms of opening that piece up, which means you may leave some dollars from as a percentage on the table. You're still going to be spending less than you spent in 2019, in 2021. So dollar for dollar, and you're still going to be spending more in 2021 than you did in 2020. But having a wider base is, I think, a smarter approach at this point in time.
For sure. As we are approaching the end of our session, I guess during this period, the new normal, probably one of the most overused phrases of our lifetime. I guess that there's been so many new initiatives. The other thing to address is, how do you implement them within a business? How would you give advice to any procurement professional who would be trying to implement change and new metrics within the business, and there's an internal sell that needs to be done that might be met with some, we've previously used metrics that worked in the past, where the focus is on cost and efficiency. As these new drivers come into play, for example, duty of care, topping the bill of priorities, what advice would you give to anyone in that circumstance?
Mike, do you want to start as usual to keep the habit?
I'll just keep chatting. So we only have 20 minutes.
We literally have one or 2 minutes left. Yeah.
We always knew that travel has to be measured differently than other indirect procurement categories, right? Because it involves people, right? So that is just exacerbated. That's emphasized in the new normal. You need to take a look at pieces. What I would say is, talk to your suppliers, right? Because you're not the only person running into this problem or seeing this opportunity to adapt your metrics to something better. Talk to your suppliers, all of them. What does it look like? What are they expecting? Maybe they're not expecting full compliance anymore, and you've got some more wiggle room there. Talk to your TMC, because again, it's the same thing. We're here to help we've been helping a lot of our clients in terms of measuring, adjusting what a measurement for success would look like. And then I would say the last one for me would be measuring your expense, your T&E as a percentage of your revenue.
Yeah.
Right? What did that look like? Because that goes back to the type of travel, the value creating travel. Are you traveling, and are you creating actual revenue and value for your organization while you're doing it? What do you think, Ben?
Yeah, absolutely. And then my two advices would be, one is don't focus on really, again, savings. Focus on being flexible. How flexible, adaptable is your system? So do you have access to like rates from a marketplace, from like dynamic rates? So what's your plan B, C if suppliers all of a sudden drop out? So have these plans in there and show that you're flexible on getting rates and basically supply easily in your program. That's number one. And number two is really, as we said, the shift away from the traditional metrics might stay. And so just because the volume is not high and the savings will drop doesn't mean you're not busy. And that's why the new metrics will show that risk management, compliance, health and safety, these metrics will help you to demonstrate that the machine is maybe more busy as before because it's busy with other stuff.
Exactly. Thank you so much for your contributions, Ben and Mike. This has been a really interesting conversation. I'm sure we could go into more detail. We're limited with time today. Thank you, ProcureCon, for inviting us to present and have this discussion. And thank you to the audience for tuning in. We would invite you to connect, whether you're part of a COVID-19 internal steering committee, whether you're in procurement, operations or risk. Check out the free resources available on our website, and definitely we're always open for conversation. So thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the conference.